Please do your.
Good evening, I'm John Lebo, I'm the chair of the City of Lake Forest Park City Council Budget Finance Committee. Well, we call it to order. I see that we do have a quorum, so much. The first item on the agenda is an adoption of the agenda. Do I hear such a motion? Second. You move and second?
Yes, I would second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is adopted. We now, time set aside for public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Motion signed up online. There's no attendees.
No attendees for public comments?
Only other person here is Ellen.
Very good.
She's an attendee. I tried to promote her to panelist, but she needs to accept it.
Okay, with that, I think that brings us to the first item of, which is the director's report. So I will look to Director Vaughn.
And I will ask our city clerk to pull up, if you would scroll all the way, you'll have January's, February's, and March's. And because it just adds on to one another, I think it might be best if we just went to March. And walked through that one. So, just to walk through the operating departments first. So, don't forget, we're at 62.5%, which is because all of 2023 and 2024, I just want to remind everybody that it's a biennial budget. And so that's why we're at 62.5% in March. And then walking down the operating department, no, we're good. The operating departments, thank you, is the first one that is yellow is the Civil Service Commission. And that one is tied to police hiring. So as long as we are continually trying to recruit additional officers, that one will be a little higher, and we will need to probably just amend that up on the next budget amendment. Going down to detention and jail, this one is just coming in significantly higher, and so on the 6-year forecast, I just went ahead and doubled my estimation for what it came in as an actual for 2023. So we will have to amend that. Which you could turn the page over and see that, or I could just tell you it's 469,000. So the actual numbers, we're just looking at the graph on this, but the actual numbers are on the back side of the dashboard. And then walking down to the environmental services, actually the line item that is driving that over, that is actually where the tree account sits, but there's one other item that sits within that, and it's the animal control. And actually, it's the animal control that's driving that over. In 2023, we had an unusually high year. Within August, September, and October, between those 3 months, that was almost $10,000 in itself. So that was very unusual activity. That does not follow any history we have, but that just is what it is. And then walking down to parks, 69%, that is being driven by being able to and hiring seasonals, and a significant amount of the 2023 seasonals was going into the parks allocation to that budget. So then going down to the surface water utility, the street drainage maintenance, that line item specifically is high within that fund, but then there's some annual costs that also the fund has paid for, such as insurance and then our sweeper debt payment. So there's a couple costs that are not they're tapped out within that for the year. And there won't be additional expenses. And then I'm gonna pause there and see if there are any questions on that, or if we're ready to walk down to the additional. Keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, sounds good. Non-operating departments. So, the ARPA fund, we've done most of the expenditures. We're trending on that. The audit is at 49%. And we're just gonna have to watch that one for how that we do have a couple audits going on right now. And so we're just gonna have to monitor that one. Because then again, this year, we're going to be doing, every single year, it's normal, it's that we're supposed to have audits every single year. But during the pandemic, the auditor's office got behind. And so we're playing catch up, and so that's gonna be a line item that we just kind of keep our eye on. The community programs, that's a 54%. Elections, that's on track. Emergency management is 105, but that's NEMCO, and that is an annual payment. So that one I'm not too alarmed by. Memberships, this year the city did elect to become part of the National League of Cities. And that was not in the original budget, so we will need to amend that. And those are based on more of an annual basis, so to be closer to 100% would be normal on the memberships because it's an annual versus an ongoing. And then walking over to the capital, to the revenue by fund. Actually, just looking at that, the general fund and the surface water fund, I just want to remind everybody that the property tax that will go into the general fund and the surface water that's paid and tied to that will come in and has already started coming in significantly in the April timeframe and the October timeframe. So those are kind of at that time, we will see a larger chunk of that revenue go into those funds. And then sewer, that one's on track. And that'll kind of go up and down a little bit because we invoice every on a bi-monthly basis. And then the transportation capital revenue, that one is low. Just as a reminder, because the budget was very heavily, it had grants for the roundabout. So that's the Transportation Improvement Board grant for the roundabout. That's a reimbursement basis, and the WASDOT grant that are associated with that project. And then I'm just going to, probably should pause there. Are there any questions? Or just keep going?
Are there any questions? So one way to think about this is that when you look down below at the capital, and you realize that the expenditure is low for the roundabout, then the revenue would also be low because
Yes.
you haven't invoiced for reimbursement.
Yes, that is a very excellent visual way to associate the two. On the capital, because we're gonna have the Public Works Director go over that portion, I think let's just wait and let the expert talk on that front. And then walking down to this is where all the numbers are. So all the numbers for the graphs that you saw in the front, if you are numbers driven and you want to look at that piece of it, they're all provided back here. But then on the revenue line item, this is where we've kind of hand cherry picked specific line items that we've been watching for one reason or another. The business tax one, that is coming in at 64%. Construction permits, 65%. And Calvin keeps saying that that's going crazy right now, which you can also see from the mechanical and plumbing permits that are over 100%. going back up one, the gas tax, that's at 61%. That's one that we've been monitoring since the pandemic. And hybrid vehicles, etc. That's when we've just been monitoring on that front. And then walking down to the passport revenue, that one's at 60%. But we're expecting some good changes on that in the very near future. Probably we'll see some of those changes in April, financially. And that will continue with the changes that council made the decision to increase the FTE, bring in the additional passport agent, and that is working as discussed, which is great. And then on the real estate excise tax 1 and 2, those two, that is just a watch item. Because we are not tracking, although this item can be very seasonal. So we're going into that seasonal. It may end up this year, it may end up being a great summer and fall as far as sales, and we actually end up meeting that, but that's just a line item that we're gonna watch and pay attention to. Sales and use tax is on target, and the traffic safety camera revenue is coming in above target. So, of the estimate. And that concludes my overview.
Are there any questions? When you look at the gas and motor vehicle, is that also seasonal? More, like, is it pretty regular?
Yeah, it's pretty big. It moves a little, but not enough to really discuss.
So we need to drive more in the summer.
And those road trips, right? But only in Washington State. I just, something that when you mentioned hybrid, I was just wondering, because the gas, obviously electric vehicles don't use gas, but there's a payment with the tax. Is that payment also distributed the way the gas tax is distributed? Do we know? Maybe I can ask Phil. I can't.
We can look into that. I don't know. I'd have to.
I'm curious if we're getting any revenue from, what would be replacing the gas tax for the electric vehicles? And then whether we need to have a talk with someone.
Possibly there should be a thought of doing a replacement, because I don't think they are.
So there's, it's the percentage, or is it a flat cost, or is it a percentage on your vehicle tab?
It's just a lot of money.
I think it's a flat cost, even
think-
with hybrid, instead of a flat increase. that you pay
Yeah.
as you drive a hybrid license.
Yeah, I think it's just a larger number to try to offset the lack of gas taxes produced by
Yeah,
electric vehicles.
we will have to circle back on that.
I'll tell you what's on my tabs. We can start from there.
Have to I'll go look at my own tabs, because I have a hybrid too. We gotta to inspect that a little deeper.
Piqued my curious thought when you said hybrid, I was like, oh wait.
Just want to check, are there any comments, Councilmember Goldman or? When you're on track, it's a little simpler.
I was gonna say, I'm getting off that easy. I almost don't wanna say that, but okay.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you so much.
I know it's clear and concise, it's easier, and being on track. Still. So that'll bring us down to our capital, budget, capital improvement. plan. Mr. Bill and Director Varga, welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. All right. Right it off it. Okay. So this is the quarterly dashboard that we've got here for the capital projects. See that there's some changes from last time, not significant, but definitely some changes. Let's start from the top, fourth place roundabout, the design is fully funded, we are on pace to, have that section of the project finished, later on this summer, it's like August. We'll have that complete. Which brings us down to the construction phase of the project. Where the project should be finished by the end of December, is what we're targeting at this point. We do have some financial issues with that project. Touch base.
Yeah, and maybe before we go beyond this one, so there's a handout as well, that you should have, 48 place roundabout update. So those are, Councilmember Lebo's questions that were posed at a previous meeting on this project, so original estimate, you can see that, where we are in design, we're in the 100% design phase. I won't walk through all this. You can see where the funding sources have come from and how much we've spent out of each. And then moving down to the current total cost of the project, currently available as, and then on top of that, how much it's anticipated to cost. And while we're talking about that, skipping over the assumptions, you can put that on the escalation factors, but contingency at 90% design is $460,000. Of that, just over $7 million. And then the breakout, this was something that had been brought up, Councilmember Riddle had asked as well, increased costing from new right-of-way tree code, that's negligible. We saw about 62% of the increase in the wall costs is due to the facade treatments that we now do per our code, and then there's $100,000 just in concrete escalation. That's what it's costing right now. And where we will be as of November 1st, we expended 0.62 million design and right-of-way costs by that point in time. So those are the numbers to help you understand where this project stands. We talked about chasing a public works loan for the remainder to get us over the hump and to construct that project. That's a full-time application, well, it's a summertime application, full-time award, so we would know ahead of time. So I think what we'll do is we'll bring a resolution to council in the near future to seek approval for the administration to apply for that. And bring you all those details back, 7% or whatever it is. I think in May is what we should have detailed numbers of what the percentage was, so we'll wait until we got those. Come back around. So if you have any questions beyond what we've answered here on the roundabout?
Yeah, just want to stop there and look around. Do we have any questions? So when you, just a couple, so when we come back in May, one of the questions will be is that we, let's say we do proceed, decide to go ahead, but our bids just come in way too high. So our sunk cost at that point will be about $1.6 million.
Sure.
Are we obligated to return any of that money?
No, I don't think any of it, let's see. WashDOT.
So that's a question.
Yeah.
Would
I
we be
think,
on
I
track
think the
actually-
WashDOT funds are a yes, because those came as a direct allocation from the legislature. TIB has said no, but they will ground us and not let us apply for some undetermined amount of time for projects.
But in terms of, as you come back to us in May, by November, will we have spent the 650,000 of the WashDOT number, or would it be
Say some other,
some
okay,
other?
we'll find that out, right?
Trying to understand if, you know, if we decide to go ahead, what happens if it's,
If we back away.
if we back away. And then you'll also talk to us about if we proceed with a $2 million loan with the Public Works Board financing, what that looks like in terms of the overall impact to our long-term budget. Capital improvements.
Yeah, and I had run that before and brought it, just rerun this numbers of that.
I understand we're not carrying significant debt, so taking on additional loans doesn't impact any of our financial ratings or, because we're
We
pretty much don't have anything right now.
And
Very-
within 2 years, our current public works trust loan pays off. Is it 26 or 27. I can't remember the date, but
Fantastic question.
coming up.
I have
Very quickly.
it's coming up
have
soon.
my.
It's almost just rolling to
yeah,
the next one.
We
That's
have-
what I
my
remember.
budget in
It's not
front of
really a
We have
huge
huge
impact.
amounts of capacity as far as taking on debt and that is our, well, that and the streets. That's our debt.
Well, no longer.
But just sweep that out of the road anyways. But anyways, that's what I recalled. We didn't have a lot of burden right now, so.
Just want to check any other comments or feedback. Councilmember Bowden.
Can you remind me, do we have in the design anything for the center of the roundabout, or is that TBD? Whether it's plantings or art or whatever.
So it would be set up so that art can go in there, but it was not part of this contract. It would be a separate
Right,
contract
but,
afterwards.
but we're assuming art, not plantings.
Correct.
Okay. Slow down, let's leave forest park.
I'm not sure that's art. but-
Just a bunch of children running.
Art,
carousel.
Thank you. So, Councilmember, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm wondering if this, the $2 million loan doesn't come through, do we have another contingency plan or is that gonna get the road for this project?
That's about the last contingency plan we can think of.
Now, the loan, can you talk a little, I mean, that's, we'd be applying for the loan, and for all intents and purposes, it's really about us being able to pay it back.
Yeah, I don't think it's 100%. I think they only award about 70% of the applications for those loans. There's not a capacity in that. I think that'll be dependent on the amount that the legislature puts in there and how much aid back they got. And just back to the art or landscape question. So the conduit will be there to do either. If we couldn't get to an agreement on what is art, you would have electricity and you could run electricity and water if you ended up landscaping. But the idea is for art to go there.
Okay.
And that would be a separate process.
And then I just want to check, Councilmember Saunders, do you have any questions or comments?
Hi, yeah, I'm sorry, I have the flu, so if I start coughing, just forgive me on that. I just remember there was a conversation about needing to widen the roundabout. We might have to acquire some property from the residents who live along that area. Is that still a plan?
Yes, we've got 4 or 5 different properties that we do have to acquire property from.
Okay, thank you. I just was wondering how that, and have we actually contacted those residents?
They have, and we're starting the process to see what it would take to acquire the property or easements.
All right, thank you.
And on this sheet that I handed out, the roundabout update, the last item, inclusive of all design and right of way costs. So by the time we get to that $1.6 million on November 1st, those activities will have taken place. The idea is to have control property by November 1st.
And that's part of being able to actually advertise is that you have the
Control of property.
control of property. You can't bid without the property controlling it. You can't bid without having.
Exactly. Two little things.
Two little things. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, Councilmember Saunders, thank you.
I apologize if this was already mentioned and I missed that detail. Is the acquisition of that property included in the budget?
Yeah,
Yes.
Great, thank you.
So then moving down, the culverts.
For the L90 culvert, we're 35th and 104, and that's fully funded from a design perspective. We're going to finish that up. This is, yeah, one of those projects that we're trying to coordinate with WashDOT. They've got a culvert right next to ours, and the design will be finished. Yeah, that seems a good thing. Check on that date.
You'll check on the April 25 date.
Yeah.
I think it's earlier than that.
Yes, I do, and I think
I think
that's,
it's this fall, actually.
I think it's scheduled for 25 in case we're gonna do it 26. Just kind of the plan right now, but if WashDOT slipped a year to 26 for theirs, we're gonna do ours at 25. So I think that was the fallback for that, so that's the kind of default right now, it's 25.
Worst case. That's the assumption if we slip a year.
Again, we're trying to.
We're not gonna slip.
They
You-
slip a year.
WashDOT may slip
If
again,
they-
but
We will be ready for 25 if WashDOT is not going to 25. we can go. But if they go 25, we'll go 26. There's cost benefits. to doing that.
Rolling through.
Go ahead.
So obviously both 40th Place and the culvert with the washed-out culvert impact 104. I think we've been hearing from WashDOT that they want to kind of look at 104 after those major projects is done. Is that something that they've been teasing us with?
you mean as far as like their
The
their
complete
overlay,
streets,
their
overlay and all that
complete
good
streets,
stuff?
yes, and they targeted that for 27.
Okay,
We're trying to move that up.
It would be good.
Encourage them that's long after they'll be done, but if their project keeps slipping.
no, it won't.
Well, WashDOT does have another call, just up 104 also, if we don't. additional one after that.
So just to clarify from my understanding, so when your target construction for L90 is September 24, that's this year. Is that if WashDOT slips?
I'm sorry, for design and construction.
Construction.
So it's going to be 25. So September. Well, the original target was, but now.
Oh, the new forecast. Oh, there you go. That's why it's yellow.
Right, we've got 26 as the ending date for the project, based on WashDOT doing theirs in 25.
These are end dates, sorry, start date.
Correct.
So that you're assuming kind of a year after they finish, then we can
Right,
tack on to their completed project and we'll have a year
correct.
to work on ours. Okay, correct.
Worst case scenario, if you will. Worst case scenario, well, as far as time.
We might change
So,
these columns to
Yeah.
start dates instead of end dates. I
well,
think
you
that's-
you also want end dates.
Yeah,
but,
we want both.
You know, when will you know when you are going to start?
Like when it's WashDOT can
Yeah.
give us their,
We will know probably in November. So we'll have time to get that call. Clear as mud.
And I would say if you have sort of these numbers, like they're targeting this, but if you throw that in the notes, that'll help us a little bit to understand like kind of this forecast might be worst case scenario, but the notes can tell us best case scenario. If everything goes as planned.
Yeah, the note there probably could be a little more detailed.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
The next item that we have on the capital plan is the Lakewood Park. I think we're pretty well in tune with what's going on over there. As far as budget's concerned, we're carrying on with our project with the company now known as Facet. So that's moving along on schedule and on budget.
just one quick point on that. So we did find out today that land conservation funds was that 2 million that we could apply for that was questionable. We are not eligible for that. So the 2.3 million that I told you was kind of our match from the city side is going to drive up from there. We'll try and have a number by next week of what that really means, but so that's gonna go up. And then we'll have to wait and see, if federal comes in, because we were told that's very tenuous as well. That was like some at this point, other than it's lots of money. And then by July of next year, we have to commit city matching funds to that as these grants come through. So whatever we get awarded, they're gonna want to see that we have identified, allocated, and locked in those match dollars. So we're trying to keep updating you as things move along as we hear back from the feds, how we're moving forward, but the living CF is just not an option with this project. So that, because it's federal dollars, could have been the 50-50 match with RCO, and that's how we're gonna get it for that. but that's not the take.
That's
And
what I
out
was
of the-
wondering.
Out of the 3 million that would come from the feds, if we get that, only about 1.2 of that could be extra match. So it's gonna this shell game until we know what funding we have in place to know exactly what match we have in place as well from other funds.
Until we know what funding we have in place, we won't know what funding we have in place. Gotta
We,
love
we
that.
won't know what match we have in place and what money as a city we're gonna have to
Yeah,
put into
give it
it.
to it.
Unless we get from outside. We pay. So stay tuned. I hope to at council meeting next week to be able to tell you kind of what that deficit is. Not deficit, but what our match would be on this at this time.
Variable.
Yeah.
We don't have construction for that because it's not necessarily planned and in there. If things go funded the way we are, what were we thinking of construction terms? I thought we were gonna start some demo this year.
So the demo, yeah, the demo, once that hasn't gone out to bid yet, that will get dropped in here.
Okay.
So you can track that as well.
Appreciate
I think
that.
we have 250,000 in for that. 270, that's what RCO held back of our award because that has to go towards them. So that'll
That's a
get programmed
reimbursable in
into
a way.
that. Yeah, it is. And then once we have solid construction numbers and dates, that'll get dropped in as well. That budget will just stay vacant until we have a bid.
For something that's likely to be this impactful and costly, are we interested in getting a third party estimate of our construction budget? Before we go forward with that to validate the numbers?
Validate as it comes up with.
Maybe, yeah, I'm just curious.
I don't. That is all.
When do you expect that they're gonna be bid?
Target is for fall for the demo to take place.
Councilmember Saunders, just want to check that you're able to hear us.
I am able to hear you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? So that brings us down to our material bids.
Deep breath, we'd like to, just need some funding for that. Material bin covers, yes, design, is wrapping up, we should have all the documentation, all the final plans, towards the end of this month, early next month. And then we'll be looking at, construction later on this year, during the summertime, probably about in June. And, probably take 3 to 4 months to build, from start to finish. Currently, right now, for the forecast, we've got $610,000 in that. That does include $30,000 for construction management. I did receive late this afternoon your numbers based on some design changes that we made as far as the structure is concerned. Their number did lower it a fair bit. I'm not gonna say it or show it right now because I haven't been able to verify and validate that. So for now, we'll leave it at the 610. That is something that we'll just have to check out the couch cushions to see where we can find a couple $100,000 to pick up that gap.
And for the delta on this, I mean, there is some capacity in the surface water capital. We just need to look at what's already programmed in there, what we were thinking about, for, maybe in the next biennium and make sure that it could support that. So we are looking at our options as slim as they are.
And just I believe we are trying to make it so it'd be like solar ready, but we are not installing any solar at this point, but it would be able to capacity to carry it in the future date.
Correct.
If we got another grant for such a thing.
Cost to do that would put this number significantly higher than it is now. And that just tends to be an easier way to approach it, but just a solar installer at that. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
So the next item we have is the 20th culvert repair that we're looking to do. The design is just about wrapped up. Next month we'll get that taken care of. With the idea of going to construction July this year to get that permanent temporary repair put in place, and that'll help us open up the road and get that buttoned up for the next few years at least, and then put that on a capital plan once we do some other ones. lump them together and have some efficiencies by doing more than one at a time, so.
Explain maybe the time frame. You know, how long we're given to come up with a real solution.
Yeah, we've got 5 years to replace this in a full repair as opposed to temporary. Thank you. And then the next item is the 35th Avenue Drainage Project. That is looking to, design is just about finished. I'll be finished looks like next month. Sorry. In June, I'm sorry. I got my glasses on, I can't see. June of this year, with construction taking place later on this year, this summer. As far as the budget, the design is fully funded there. And construction, we're expecting to be about $400,000. And if I'm not mistaken, we initially had on the capital plan, $1,050,000 dedicated to this, so the hope is that we've got the ability to do it at that level. And then the final project is the grade separated crossing. Just recently, council suggested that we go with 30% for the bridge. And that's moving ahead. We should have that later on this year as well. And that's fully funded with the grants.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Member Clinton.
Yeah, the grade separated crossing, that's the one that we're, awful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that, I think, you guys have come to us, at this kind of meeting saying that there aren't any shovel-ready projects we could apply for federal funding for. So this is our attempt to basically get a stable of these kinds of projects that we're thinking about a 10-year frame, 15-year frame, that will basically be there when we apply for that kind of federal funding.
Correct. It gives us the opportunity to go after that with a true cost estimate, and we're gonna have to scale that up 10 years from now, but but yes, it would give us that opportunity.
I appreciate your thinking on that timeline.
Yeah, it's not an anytime soon project. It's awfully big.
Councilmember Clinton.
Yes, thank you. For new council members, I just wanted to say that this concept and then moving into 30% design process has taken a while. And I think originally we all, many council members thought going under would be better, but it really isn't feasible. So now I just wanted to mention that the design of the going over bridge includes kind of a circular ramp by City Hall that assumes the Bank of America building is not there. So this is a big project that would require definite federal funding. So,
But like we discussed, 10 to 15 years from now, they may not need that location any longer. There may have been opportunities for the city to purchase it at some point along the way.
Same with on the opposite side of Waffle Way. Yeah. there
The
is-
farmers will
Yeah.
plan B.
Councilmember Saunders, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. And then as we look at the expenditures, if they align with where you are in terms of design expenditures and reimbursement. There's nothing that. Other
It's, I mean, this doesn't, let's see. This,
So I'm going back to the.
yeah, to the
monitor
dashboard,
dashboard,
yeah. I mean,
There
this
isn't
is just
anything in
like-
there that,
We have, we're spending.
very, very good, thank you. With that, why don't we move to the next agenda item? Do you have a comment? No. Okay. The next agenda item is this is 5B, the city investment report.
And that's back to me. Oh, just to follow up on one thing that City Administrator Hill did ask about the debt. Our final payment on the sewer extension debt is 2025. So, yeah,
And how much is that? Do you know?
how much dollar amount
Yeah.
for that year? It's 200 and almost 41,000.
So that gets freed up. Essentially.
But they're different, so it could.
That's-
pay
this
for
is sewer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
sewer.
That's sewer,
But in
so,
terms of debt, it goes.
Yeah. If
yeah.
New debt would be, if we did public works bond, that double that.
Reference.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on point, that was I believe that was a 20-year note on acquisition, the acquisition of the King County Sewer District. It was transitioned over for interim sewer provider and then rehabilitated and brought into our portfolio. Very far. Okay, yeah, it went from King County to Ronald to Lake Woods Park, I think, and then very long moves.
That's the way capital investments
Yeah.
work. We're investing for the future. Thank you. So Director Vaughn, our investment report.
Yes, thank you, City Clerk, for throwing that up there. And so walking into our investment report. On here, it just shows these are the treasury, the governmental agency bonds that we have purchased. And you will see exactly as we discussed in our original meeting with the strategy, that the maturity dates are following from one maturing in August of this year. And it just continues to go down, from 2020, we've got 2 in 2025, then we've got 2 in 26, 27, 1 in 28 and 1 in 29. I will highlight that I have highlighted 1 in yellow at the bottom. That governmental agency bond just matured. And therefore was reinvested under the 2 that are blue to show as the higher dollar amount, the $2 million investments, as those matured, we discussed filling in to ladder the gaps, which is exactly what we're doing. And so we're showing you through this report that that is what's being done. Exactly as we discussed. And I actually will take a minute and probably should back up and say that our investment policy does go out 5 years. And so, but we're trying to ladder on a little bit of the shorter term versus going out to the longer term. And then, if you walk down, I just added it up for the 25-26 budget on this bucket of money. How much interest will be allocated across the funds, and that $443,648, almost $9. That is a solid, stable, budgetable number on that, which makes finance so happy. These are our small wins. So that is a very real number, and it's very budgetable. Because what I'll say next is that with the LGIP, we do have a large bucket of our money and our cash flow in the LGIP, and that rate currently is doing actually quite well. So the liquid, but the gamble is that could change next month. And so with this is a solid footprint now of following the strategy. We've got the 25-26 and 27-28. And I can already tell you that we're almost at 194,000 for 27-28. And so this just makes me, I know this is where finance gets really excited. So I'll just take that little silly win and just because it's a very real number, and this is what we've been going after with expenses going up so much and not really having revenues meet those expenditures. This is one way that we are trying to really change that resiliency on the revenue side to try to allow our money to really work for us. That being stated, that like I said, our short-term investment money being in the local government investment pool. Sorry, I just threw out LGIP and did shorthand. And then we also have, at our bank, we have, some funds in a reserve account, and both of those currently are making over 5%. Which is a great interest rate right now. And we need both. Let me be very clear, no matter what, you need both in this diversification for your city's funds. You need both. They both play a key role. So, that being said, with the more liquid funds, that vehicle that we're using being the LGIP and the reserve on the bank account, that interest rate just isn't guaranteed, where this is. That's why finance gets really excited. And I will stop and see if anybody has any questions off of that excitement.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Riddle.
I just had a quick question about what's currently number one on here. So that's one of our $2 million investments. And when we started this, we kind of wanted to get rolling a little quicker, so we started out with some higher numbers, but we want to be closer to the $1 million, kind of, that's our policy laddering forward. So I'm assuming that when that matures, we're going to split it into two as well, like we did for.
That has been the practice.
Okay.
That's what we've been, yes. So and the reason why was, in order to get some of the funds invested, we did elect to invest, I think it was three $2 million blocks. And therefore, but to have those mature within this budget so that we would see that interest, back within this budget, because they were a little bit different. And then we proceeded with the remainder. And then as those have matured, we have done exactly as we discussed, breaking that $2 million block into 1 million and taking a shorter term versus a longer term to keep the laddering. So and then when this one matures, then we take and you're gonna see immediately, it's very predictable at this point. You're gonna go and we're gonna do something on the later side of 28. So you're doing, you pretty much have something maturing almost every 6 months. And so if you need your cash flow, then as it matures, you just elect to not reinvest. So it's just really. I'll contain.
Councilmember Saunders, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just listening intently. Thank you.
Taking turns.
I have a son taking a.
Councilmember Purtle. Oh, nope, I'm always last.
So thanks. So Director, thanks again for a great report. Just wanted to clarify, coupon for the non-treasuries is essentially the interest rate.
Okay, so yes, the coupon is the interest or the rate that we're being paid out. Now, the coupon, that can vary, actually, the true, they call it yield to maturity, yield or interest rate, actually is on the other side. So yield to maturity, that is the true interest rate. Now, this is where it gets complex, because some of the bonds you purchase at a discount versus a premium. So while you have the bond, it's making the coupon rate is the exact amount that you will see deposited into your account and you will be paid. But the variance, positive or negative, will go into when you sell it. Not sell, when it matures. Let me do a terminology correction right there. When it matures and the city has those funds back, that's where the variance will show up, whether it's positive or whether it's been purchased at a premium versus a discount.
Because as I recall, one of the reasons that we wanted to change the strategy, you described it earlier, was that there was that very interesting time period right during the pandemic when there was an inversion in interest rates where the short-term interest rates were much higher than the long-term ones. And I'm noticing with at least the coupon rates, they're declining. So I guess my long-winded question is literally, are we gonna expect less money from this strategy in the future just because things are returning to close normal?
So yes, you are correct. So exactly as I was saying with the shorter term being the local government investment pool and the bank's reserve, those are at 5%. So yes, you are going to see that our liquid is making a higher interest rate right now than our longer term investments. And that is because, all of the federal forecasting is that it's not going to stay that way. So, that being stated, in fact, I just came back from a conference and somebody was stating how they had to explain at their year end, how they didn't, when they were doing a report, that they didn't think that by year end, the liquid rate would still be this high, and they had to go back and make the correction and say, well, it is, you know, we do the best we can, but then reality kind of sets in sometimes. So, we're all human, we do the best, but what they're stating from the federal is that, the liquid rates are, and we've been hearing that for a little bit, are, projected and forecasted to decline, which then will make the longer term rates more desirable. So it, and the way I will explain it is that a city and an entity always needs both, because you have one bucket of money. If you keep the strategy, one bucket, it will always be doing better. But if you just keep the strategy and you're not trying to make more money in one place or another, you have stability. Which in my world and finance that's what, it's very predictable, stable, and that's where, that's where we appreciate that, but you do need both, no matter what.
Thanks. Councilmember Goldman, thanks.
Thanks, this is great to see. I know when we were first devising the strategy, we were debating what the right dollar amount was. So currently we have just over 10 million invested. First, could you remind me what has the city authorized, or what is the budget committee authorized to invest?
Yeah, it was up to, no, I thought it was percentage. It was like 10.5, 10.5, it was just above 10. And knowing that small buckets, it's not perfect. We have about blocks, but, and we do have an additional much higher dollar amount, that's in a liquid format.
And so that leads to my second question. Now that we've kind of seen proof of principle, this is working well. As a city, do we want to reevaluate what authority level we want to give for this part of our investments? Like, would we want to consider 12 or 15 based on our overall budget?
Are you asking for, are you asking that as a question, or are you asking that for me?
It was more like a semi-rhetorical, do we want to have that conversation about what level we should be at?
Go ahead. I am comfortable with what the city is investing currently, and the fact that we are allowing this to work for us at this dollar amount. And I do like having the amount of money this city has for the projects, and there will be times of the year, like now, that because of property tax and whatnot, that your funds get a little tighter, and then April will show up, and then then that bucket of money will show up. And so it's not perfect throughout the year on the flow of money. And so you have to be able to plan and afford for that flow to occur. So I think, as your finance director, that this is the appropriate amount that was approved at that time. I still think it's appropriate. And to not exceed, just keep the system the strategy going as. And I will let you, if you wanna,
I would just add to, with all the unknowns that we have right now, the escalation of costs every time we turn around, I think it's good to keep a little more liquid at this point. And
yeah,
like Director Ron said, yeah, that cash flow is a big thing.
Okay, just to finish on that, it may be useful then, since we're running on a biennial cycle, is just come back to us on a biennial cycle for the investment and say, this is what we've authorized, this is what we're doing, whether or not there's any recommendations to make any changes based on a biennial cycle.
and I mean, I think that also if we wanna, as I'm giving these reports. If, like, I wanted to check in if you were asking me or if you were asking the budget committee. Because technically, it's the budget committee that adopts the strategy in the plan. It's the budget committee that approves. So that's why I wanted to just take
I want to be, I guess, both, ask you both, you and the budget committee, but I think, yeah, biennial cycle sounds.
We can talk about it, but my suggestion would be, because we're running on the budget, that it's useful to have a biennial discussion of our investment. Just to recap what we've authorized and what we've done over the last year and what we see forward as to whether or not we want to make any adjustment. Because it's based upon sort of our reserve capacity and where we're at and how that fits in together with our local government investment program. And, great question. I think if we want to talk about it more, my suggestion is just on a biennial as we approach the budget cycle.
And what I was gonna mention is kind of tagging right onto that is, as we talked about our comfort level where it is now, and if we were to raise it, we started getting less comfortable because, you know, how much cash on hand will we have and at what point? So I think we talked about possibly like needing a cash flow analysis to kind of understand where we were safe, you know? So I think if we had these discussions on a biannual basis to also kind of understand, you know, where would our investments be? When would they possibly start impacting cash flow? Just kind of so that we have that comfort level of knowing that we're not putting our city into any sort of crunch at any point of time.
I'm just gonna say, I don't even wanna be close to that.
Exactly, no one does, but we wouldn't want to inadvertently do it because we haven't been informed what it looks like. So I think that should be part of that discussion, just sort of prompting you for later.
I will, okay, I think we did when it was approved, I thought we
had some.
had a cash flow,
We did.
didn't we?
Yeah, we were way safe,
Okay.
which is why we sort of picked
So,
this number.
Yeah, safe is my comfort zone, so, but it sounds like maybe I need to dust that off and update it. And if that's what
I mean,
I think as we approach our
budget,
yeah, not now,
that
but
it's
with
useful
that.
just to remind us what we had authorized and how that relates to our reserves and our cash flow. And just reaffirm to ourselves that this is the right approach.
okay.
And as Councilmember Goldman suggested, look at how much we are investing and just re-look and say, yeah, we are comfortable at where we're at, given what we see coming forward. So. Just because I don't remember all the acronyms and the numbers too aligned, the YTM and the YTW.
Yield to
Yield to
maturity and
yield
yield to wait,
To wait.
Worst, I think.
or I think
I think it's yields
worse.
worse.
It is worse,
I don't know what that
You're
means,
right.
but I think that's what it is.
but I will have to,
It's a acronym.
yeah, and I think it's, if you can see, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
But I can follow up on
Just
that.
That was my question.
And then,
Do you want me to follow up on that?
yeah,
So
sort of more
minimum
or less
return
security.
received on a callable bond.
Oh, yeah, that's not applicable.
We don't.
None of these are callable.
It's the minimum return received on a callable bond, but we aren't doing
None of
our-
these are
We're not
callable.
allowed to do callables.
No,
So we could probably
that
drop
was
that,
stated. That was a joint decision that nothing was callable.
so we can probably drop that column for future.
Yeah, it's just how
But that's
they,
a great quiz question.
I could
For those
do
who have- yeah.
That's a Jeopardy question. As long
yeah,
as I can have my Google, I'm on.
Yeah.
thank you for the assist.
But it may be Googling.
So just as we talked about the rollover, the easy way for us to see that is that when we look at the estimated redemption date, when you spoke of the next one that's going to mature and then it's gonna be split from 2 million
Yep.
into 1 million, you can look down and see the pairs. And that we run out of pairs in 2028, therefore the next one's gonna be 2028 and 2029.
That is,
So we can just read it by looking for
So
pairs.
it's very, yes, so just so you can look at this and you can see that you basically can predict what I'm. And I try to get close, sometimes there aren't, it isn't a perfect 6 months, but that's what we have to go into the market at that time and see what's close. And that's what we try to follow.
The other is that, this is really good, I love this. Is that, when you come down to your boxes in the 2025-26 budget, it's 443.6. And then 27-28 is the 193, and it's the addition of the 2 columns.
Yes,
Now, will that increase? Or is that, what you project for those, for that?
no, this is guaranteed.
But I
This
mean,
is
it's guaranteed because you've essentially earned
locked
it.
it in,
Earned it.
yes.
Will you earn any more? For example, for the 27-28, and explain if you think you will, why?
So I'll just use the example of the 2024, when that matures, in August. And we walk that down and it's in 28 and 29, then the 28 and what's not shown in 29 that budget will increase. I don't believe anything within 25 and 6, that will not increase as far as this bucket of money being the government agency bonds. But also, don't forget, we have another bucket of money that is making, this is the predictable investment interest yield rate, whatever we want to, whatever term you want to use. This is the predictable portion, where that does not necessarily mean it's 100% of the budget. I want to be really clear on that, because you will have that variable rate. That one's just a little bit harder to project, because you're trying to be really safe, because you definitely do not want to be overstating your revenues. But to your question, circling back, I would think that with the 2024, using that as the example, your 27-28 budget will increase once you have. And so, and then the next will shift over and go to a 29-30 column. And now you know already that you're making a certain set amount of interest already in the next in multiple bienniums out, which that's,
Actually,
I know.
so the 25-26 is essentially locked in because of the way it's laddered. It's in the future years that as it gets laddered, it will.
That will become more predictable.
But I think it looks like to me that the 27-28 budget's the only one that has kind of one question mark. And then, like you said, the 29-30 budget, but we'll see that very quickly, because after that, we'll be yielding two a year, and then we'll roll to the next. So we'll kind of, this is just weird because we have that $2 million that we're splitting, so it's not.
And I will go back. I think I wonder if the question you were asking too is within like fiscal year 2025 right there. That one matures in February. So the way that I did that is I took that coupon rate and then I just times it by, 2. So it's an estimate. So this isn't like 100% perfect because you're dealing with a couple days here. So there might be some variables, but yeah, it's pretty set, but there might be a little bit of a variable.
Councilmember Goldberg.
I'm trying to, it seems to me that actually both of those go up. So in this August, when the $2 million matures, and if you then reinvest it into a 28 bond and a 29 bond, assuming if those bonds are paying interest every, let's say, 6 months, they're going to be making us payments in 2025, 2026.
Oh, yes,
That are not currently at the table because we obviously don't know what any.
yes, I'm,
So this is a minimum, but these
Yes.
numbers can go up. If we, I think, like, it assumes that we don't reinvest any of the current bonds. So if we continue to reinvest them, we will be getting more money.
yes. That is a correction.
It's a higher yield.
I
as
was-
Well, so, which is what this shows, right? I mean, when you sold zero, it was at 4.05 and you're getting it at 4.35 and 4.18. There yields like.
Part of the question is, when you look at this, is you say, okay, for the 25-26, which is relatively near term. The $443,000 is sort of baked in. And then when you look at the 27-28, it's not as though it's just gonna immediately come in half. It's just that those payments, because they laddered, haven't yet been realized. And so long as the interest rates are relatively same from one to the other, your income will be essentially the same. So just as to make it simple, if forever it was 4%, then you get the same amount every year.
Yeah.
So when we think of this, as we look down this, so long as the yield to maturity is always relatively the same, then you can project that you'll get that amount of money each year.
But yields could decline.
Right, and so when the yield declines, that means that the returns on the investment for each year will decline accordingly.
But they'll still be predictable.
They'll still be predicted. So,
Still a set amount that I can, that can be budgeted and that will be distributed across every single fund, which is the only thing we do that actually can be. And so that's the other piece, and that's,
so. Just want to check, Councilmember Saunders. You can-
I'm still here.
Okay. So, any other comments or questions? This is really good. I think we may not have many public out there watching, but this is really a great example of good government in practice. The financial stewardship, and I think it's what our public expects of us, and it's been represented, I think, in many different ways. So, thank you very much. Councilmember Betty.
I just want to commend our city administrator and the finance director for actually proposing this. I believe it took the council a couple of years to actually say yes. But
for be
now-
precise.
Yeah, well, keep pandemic in there, okay? Kind of French in our ears.
It seemed like two. But anyway, it is good government, but it was also excellent staff initiative. So.
Good is a very high praise. With that, I think, do we have any new business? With that, I think we'll call it adjourned at 7:08. Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice to know that. It does represent, it's really a nice